It's that time. Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, Monday morning. I don't know where you're watching this or listening to it, but it is Sunday Night Tea Talk, a show that, look, we show up to help one another get ready for the week. And I'll tell you what, it hits different when it's nice outside.
Mm.
Like Sundays just feel like yesterday felt energizing to me when you get that weather. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a beautiful 65 degrees here in the high plains of New Mexico. But I'll tell you what was even better than this weather. Bars. I was in this light's really washed me out, man. Sorry, ADD time, kids. I was in Los Angeles last weekend into the beginning of the week this week, and that was some special weather.
Well, especially when you come back and it's like 12 degrees here.
12 degrees, no jacket. Didn't take a coat with me.
I should have brought you one. Sorry.
Should have. Now we know for
Anything.
next time. Man, that sucked. But so as we're jumping into this, Lopez is asking me, how was my time in LA? First of all, I walked out with this nice sweater. You've got one on too, but you can't really see it.
You go this way.
This new company that I'm partnering with that.
If you're not go follow them. Go follow
you need to be following
Knowledge.
them.
I think it's Get Knowledge also, or just Knowledge. But you should follow them to hear all the upcoming stuff that's
The stuff
gonna happen.
we are about to do with this company. No one in the education space is doing it. I mean, nobody is doing stuff like this. And it is turning into, and I can say this here because this is just our homies, but this is going to turn into conferences. There's going to be 2 conferences next year. We haven't announced this yet. There'll be 2 conferences next year, one East Coast, one West Coast, to make it easier for folks. It is turning into a lot of cool stuff. So even Lopez hit me up because I need to talk to you about this. But if you are within driving distance of Los Angeles, you will want to pay attention as well, because there's going to be some really exceptional stuff coming up. So
that people get to actually participate in.
Yes.
So if you want a chance to participate in person, if you're in the California, LA area or not far from there, you get the opportunity to do that, which would be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I would jump on if I was in that space.
Yeah, that's our dog trying to get
in. The dog is opening the door. That's what my dog can do. My dog can open doors. So he can't do anything else to help us out around the house, but he can certainly open a door. So with that, my time in LA was great, John. You know, one of the things that I forget, there he is, just came in. It's an ear infection, so I hope everyone doesn't flap his ears all over the place. But my time in LA was great. It was time around other people that are doing great stuff. And that is always so energizing to me when people love the work that they're doing. It shows and it glows. It's like you're out to dinner with 15, 20 people that are just excited about being alive. And I'll tell you, one of the revelations to me is I'm very mindful of other people's thoughts and feelings. Like there's an empathy part of me. I wouldn't say I'm an straight empath, but like I read a lot. And I think actually that comes up from like growing up with parents that had to really read their body language so you knew how to act. And that's all I'll say about them. I won't go into that really deep, but like because of that, I've gotten very good like reading people's body language. I really love being alive. I really, really, really love my life, like to an unbelievable degree. There's parts of it I would like to get better, but I mean, overall, we live in a wildly best life. That comes across if you meet me in person, that it's like this same energy I put out online is like what I put out in real life, I'd say. And you know that because my wife would be pushing back on that right now because she likes to keep me on the straight and narrow. But like that is very off-putting to some people. I've learned in my life, like your energy, your excitement, your love of what you do, of who you are, of who you're with, of who your kids are, like that is off-putting to be in a room where that is just met with equal or greater energy and people cheering you on instead of being like, oh, come on, this again. Like you're just so much all the time. Damn, that feels good, man. It is magic. So yeah, that met with Lopez, like, you know, you forget, you live in a little town, there's few options to eat anywhere. Everywhere we went to eat, there was fire. It was just like, and there's 1,000 recommendations that everyone has. So yeah, I love, maybe I don't know if it would change if I lived there, but I love being in Los Angeles. I've always have, like, since I was the first time I ever went there when I was 18, it's been great. So with that,
I hope to be able to go soon on one of these trips.
Yeah. Everyone's unusually tan, though. The promo pictures we got back from the attend-a-thon are so good. But I'm going to start posting those in about a week. I'm about to start posting them. They are so good. But, man, I look like a vampire.
Can you still watch the attend-a-thon? So
you can.
If you didn't watch it, if you could go to Knowledge's YouTube channel, and watch the attend-a-thon. It's a 2-hour, 3-hour. It's a 3-hour like live they did. I watched the whole thing. I thought it was really great. It had a ton of special guests on there.
Yeah.
It was
a lot of technical difficulties because it was live.
Yeah.
But
and it's a lot to coordinate and to figure out for the first time.
That was super last minute too. Not like anything we ever do was last minute.
Okay. Well, and to confirm, John, yes, I do totally have a cold that is just plaguing me. I almost don't see this morning. I was like, I don't think I'm going to come on because I'm just so, I sound terrible and I don't have any symptoms really other than a cough and a runny nose, but it's been fatiguing me a lot.
For people on Spotify, I mean, listening to someone cough.
No, so I'm going to really try not to.
It's like when School of Greatness is one of my favorite podcasts. But man, Lewis Howell's always breathing into that mic all the time. It drives me nuts.
Okay, so I can start. This isn't really a question, but figure we can help out.
Hit it. Oh, I think someone emailed a question too.
They did. I have that one. Marcus said he just read your book. He said, I'm going to go into school early to write quotes on all the kids' desks. He said, any tips on where I can find good quotes? I'm a bit stuck.
ChatGPT. It is just go to chat. What kind of quotes? And write the prompt out. I need a number of quotes that I'm writing for my students. I'll be writing them on their desks, so I need them to be concise and age appropriate. And then tell the age, if there's certain topics you want them to hit on, like hope or motivation or inspiration or grit or willpower, like what are those things and why. You'll get a million. And if you want more, just say create more quotes like that, like find more quotes, and it will do it faster than you can do it. And you're not pulling from the same, like you're not on like teacher pages pulling stuff. And I'll tell you what, one of the worst things in the world, like is seriously one of my biggest aggravations, is what is with when you go on a teacher's blog or something, there are a million pop-ups and ads running. You can't even read anything because it keeps jumping all over the place. It is maddening.
Maybe that's how they make their money.
Maybe, but it's at the expense of my sanity. So
I really dislike using sites like that. That's fairly common in like food blogs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll bet like your recipe ones that you pull from really
tons of pop-ups. John said that you should make me some chicken soup. I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Right, I'll go get a can.
Oh, blasphemy! Oh no. Okay.
The way you eat, I'd have to go kill a chicken. It would be fresh. Washed with fresh mineral water. I mean, come on.
No, it's not that hard. Just go get a chicken, buy some bone broth.
Let's go on. Let's move on. Let's see if we have to come back to that.
Okay, so let's go to Tamara, who emailed us a question asking how to create engagement in young adults.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I tried to get that. I did it. Okay, sorry. How to create engagement in young adults that don't believe they are capable, that have been bullied, and have zero trust in the school system. I have great relationships with them, and all the students are friends with each other. The classroom and activities are tailored to their levels and needs. We have daily talks about growth mindset and self worth. Once a month, I have individual assessments. I can explain the why of everything we do in class. We talk about their future and what they want out of their lives. But as soon as they actually have to do any work, I get eye rolling that I have to go to the toilet, etc. I have students that after 6 months haven't returned any assignments, and I don't want to give up on them. Any suggestions for Tamara?
I'm going to say it's Tamara.
Tamara,
because I knew it. Tamara. It could be Tamara. I don't know. I knew it. I went to school with Tamara Clausen, 5th grade. There you go. I think, one, I just want to note that you're doing a lot of the right things. And that really bears saying, because it's not an immediate return on investment. Like when we're pouring into kids, it's almost like sometimes you're pouring into something that has some holes, and those holes need to do some healing, and healing takes time. So keep pouring in, because eventually it's going to work, right? Eventually it's going to, unless there's like some outlier kids that have like some serious trauma that like is beyond what we can do, but like don't underestimate what the power of love, as Lewis said. But it's continue doing what you're doing. You just don't really know what your impact is or will be. Now, I'll tell you this: when I have kids that don't turn in stuff, and this bears a longer conversation, but like sometimes failing is the best lesson for kids. Kids need to know that I'm for real, that I wasn't playing, and I'm not going to be wishy-washy with your grades, because I want them to truly reflect your level of mastery. And I don't want to let you go until you know what you're doing, because this stuff is important, especially the way that you're designing your class. It sounds like, Tamara, and really creating something that is meaningful. That being said, there is a hard push that I make for students where it's like, I'm not playing. Like, this isn't like, I think y'all think kindness is weakness sometimes, right? This is what I'm telling my students. That love is soft. But as Def Leppard said, love bites. And I want to be able to have that sort of tough love for my students sometimes. The other thing is, when I get kids, I've talked about this any number of times, but like when I'm talking to students about what they want for themselves in their lives, I also want them to think about the repercussions that their choices right now are going to make on their family. Because there was a study done that something like, I might have these numbers slightly off, but it's pretty close. There was a study done that said that 90% of people that are prescribed an antibiotic by a doctor do not finish the bottle. But 90% of people whose dogs have been prescribed a antibiotic or any medication by a doctor finish the entire reign of that dose of what they're supposed to do. And this really shows us something, in that we are far less likely to do something for ourselves, but we will do for others, right? Like, I don't know if I'd run in front of a train for myself, but I'd do it for my kids. I don't know if I like, part of me going to the gym for over 500 workouts without missing one is because I go with my son. It's not if it was me, I'd probably make 8, right? Like, I just wouldn't. I far less. I don't even want to discount myself that much, because I did run, but it is when because I go with Brody, it makes me have to go even when I don't feel well. I don't feel good. I'm tired. Like last week, 2 weeks ago, We worked out in Lubbock, Texas, because we knew we had an hour and a half ride home. So we went to the gym at like, what, 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. We found Planet Fitness in Lubbock. I went in a regular clothes. I was that guy at the gym, regular clothes, working out in khakis and, not workout gear. Because I am committed to Brody. If we can get kids to realize that their actions not only can affect people in a negative sense, but working hard can help you build a life that blesses those around you. So getting that vision of what could that life look like? What does that apartment look like? What does it look like to retire your grandma? What does it look like to let your mom only have to work one job? What does it look like to be able to help out with some bills around the house, or, to help out around your community, give to your church, whatever it is? What does it look like to be that kind of baller that you're helping and out and being a blessing to others? And that is a motivator that is going to potentially motivate kids more than just their own self-interest. And kids only ever usually think about themselves, right? At that age. And so how can I get you to think beyond you, to bless beyond you? And that could be the motivator. That it's like, then what happens is when kids are tripping and they're not getting work done, I'm like, so all that stuff about your little brother, all that stuff about real haircuts, about Christmas presents, about full Christmases, about birthdays at, not at like just house, like going out and doing stuff, like, is that all nonsense? And I really pull on those heartstrings of kids, because that can be the thing that gets you motivated, gets you moving, that gets you doing more than what you're doing now.
That's a great answer.
Thanks.
Just real fast, everybody's commenting that this is episode 299, so next week will be episode 300.
Yes.
And how exciting
Next episode will be John Lopez's 300th episode he has watched in a row.
That is amazing.
Lopez, did you ever watch?
I should send you an award, John.
I'm telling you, I want to make one.
In your spare time.
In my spare time, I think we could present it to him at.
Oh yeah.
When I go back out to LA, Lopez and I were supposed to meet up this time, but my schedule didn't allow it.
He's going to start driving now, so he can get there in time with the traffic.
For real. We went to Ventura. No, not where did we go?
Santa Monica.
Santa Monica Pier, and it was like a couple miles away. But you're just like, why does this take the longest time of my life?
I can't even imagine.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Here in New Mexico, if there's 5 people at the stoplight, I'm like, dude, why are there so many people here today?
No, when we first moved here, it was
wait.
hilarious. My sister would talk about like rush hour traffic, and I was like,
oh,
bro,
ain't
no such thing here.
They're hilarious with the rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
Rush hour. Ain't no rush. Nothing's rushing the whole state.
It's just not that many people.
No.
All right. So Julia has a question asking any management tips for a gallery walk. Students will be reading everyone's museum place cards they made in group list class and answering 2 questions on a half sheet of paper.
I think it's setting the expectation, Julia. It's understanding that leaders are repeaters, so you're probably going to have to keep reminding kids. And when you do that, stop them. All right, everyone, I need your attention on me. Right? So like we get everyone to their first stop. I need your attention on me. As we're moving to the next one, this is what I need to see. Right? So you have this much time to get to your next place. I don't know, 5 seconds or whatever. Time the amount of time that they're at that station, and then like loosely, right? You can move that around if you need to. Some classes are just going to be fine, and other classes will be more problematic. But you are putting some of those limitations in, and then before they move to each station, you're just repeating and repeating and repeating. But be mindful, and because I don't know you and I don't know how you talk, I'm saying this because this is something I do. It's repeating it in such a way where it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to make good choices, right? You don't want to be like, all right, so when you go to the next station, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not acting like this. I don't want to see this kind of behavior. It's like, hey guys, just make sure you're chill and you're walking to the next station. And you're doing a great job so far. This is what I'm seeing and this is what I love. Thank you for doing a great job. Like I love having this opportunity to move around a bit. And then if you can't handle it, shut it down. Like we're going to do something different. You could even make it so they have to sit when they get to that next station, so kids aren't standing, might be a little bit less maddening if necessary.
What's gallery walk? There's some sitting.
Well, you can sit when you get there. You just stop it. Just knock it off right now.
No.
So that that's what I would do, and then take notes. What worked? What didn't work? What could we do better? Ask your students, hey, this is one of the behaviors I was seeing today. I'm trying to figure out a way that we can get around this and like have that conversation as well.
Sorry, excuse me. All right, Kim is up next asking, what suggestions do you have for making lessons more student-centered?
So, to me, Kim, that's about really getting to know your students and knowing what moves them, interests them. And not just, but also stretching them. So this is why I've used this example exhaustively, but I'll use it again. When we started using Legos in class, to me, when I saw the unbelievable level of engagement, like it was like one of the most engaging things I've ever had a class do, where they were locked into what they were doing. And the only thing that's loud in your class is like kids rifling through that Legos. You have 6 groups like digging through Legos. It's pretty loud, but it was so good that it was like, okay, we need to do this again. Creating TikTok length videos as reviews is another thing, but you have to have the room for that, right? So, but what I also find is that there were kids that didn't want to actually. Legos was I was batting 1,000 on that one.
I feel like all kids love Legos on some level.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but most of them you can like win on.
It took some learning though, because a lot of kids grew up without Legos because they're so expensive.
That's true.
But like when I've done stickbots in the past, stickbots, for those of you that don't know, it's like a toy that you can use to create stop motion videos. So my kids create stop motion. Some kids love that, some kids didn't. And so I'm gauging that and looking like, why doesn't someone like it? Does it just mean it's not like they're not a creative? They don't see themselves as a creative, or some kids do. Some kids don't like making movies, some kids do. So I'm differentiating that because I'm going to play to some people's strengths and I'm going to stretch others. But there are things I've done, and I can't think of an example. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because there's a lot of them that I thought were going to be student-centered because it worked in the past, or it worked with other classes, or I don't know, the internet told me it would, and they didn't work. So student-centered to me is about gauging, I'm trying something, seeing if my students are interested in this, or excited by this, or finding success with this, and then I lean more into that. But sometimes it just is a matter of, and speaking of the book, I talk about this in the book, it's like asking, what do you want to do? What would be a cool way to do this? What would be an interesting way to do this? And so that's it. And it's something that takes time to build that with your students, but when you do, it's game on.
I also think it's that who am I sheet that you offer that
Yes,
is like a intake form of all the things, from food to YouTube shows to video games, and like knowing that kind of information. It's so weird when you found out that like Fortnite creates lessons. There are like teacher lessons that utilize Fortnite. Like,
yeah,
that is so, most people would never know about that. I feel like, I don't know why it's like a little secret or something like.
But that's a muscle one exercise that you can continue to use. So it doesn't dawn on you to Google, like if y'all Google Fortnite lesson plans, there are Fortnite lesson plans out there that Fortnite makes that are based in, most of it's physics, like different types of science, right? But Minecraft has lesson plans for every conceivable lesson, or class.
Subject.
Like, I mean, from art to, everything.
I wonder if Roblox has any, because I feel like Roblox is still
Wouldn't be
popular
surprised.
at some level.
But it's like find out. I know because everybody plays Roblox.
Mhm.
Everybody. So just Googling whatever your kid is interested in, lesson plan. Using AI to come up with some of those ideas as well. How would I connect Call of Duty to the American Revolution or to the Vietnam War or to whatever? Like, how could I work that into a lesson plan? It's telling you those things exist. And that becomes student centered too, because what you're doing is tapping into interests that already exist. And that's going to make the kids pay attention from the jump.
All right, Linda is up next asking, a teacher friend of mine mentioned that we should leave emotions out of teaching to be more sustainable. I feel emotions deeply, and it's hard to mask my emotions. Any advice?
I don't know that that's true. I am
feel
very
like you're
emotional.
human, like,
I don't know that it's easy to turn that off all the time. Sometimes I have to pretend I'm not feeling something. Like, I don't want kids to see like how mad I am sometimes, because it will just ruin the vibe of the class. There's certain other times that, like, I don't know that I hide it, but I need to show up for work, right? So like, I know we had I don't know, what was it? 8-month, 10-month period. It was like my grandmom passed, then my father-in-law passed, then my brother-in-law passed, and you still got to show up to school. But what I found is that school was a respite for me. That was the time of day it was all consuming that I didn't even get to remember. It was like a break. It was like I was in Severance. I got like the break. I was like in data refinement or something. But even when not, I have to show up to work. And that, I think, is different. I think it depends on what your emotions are about.
I think there's a difference between having emotions and like being aware that you have them and letting students see that you have emotions. So I wouldn't say to be emotionless is good. Like Tristan, even in the comments, I think showing emotion is important to show your students that you're genuine. But I think if there's a difference between letting your emotions rule you. So it's like,
that's it.
Right? Like if you're aggravated as a student, you could talk about being disappointed because that's an emotion. But am I gonna like berate and be angry and yell at a student? Because
Yes.
like that's leading your emotions are leading you.
Yes.
So I think there's a difference. I wouldn't say being emotionless is good, but letting your emotions rule how you behave, that's a difference. That's a whole, I agree with that. We shouldn't be doing that. But yeah.
I would say to that too, Linda, it might be, if this is the case, sometimes things are triggers in school, like, that kids say or do, or admin does, or other teachers doing stuff that can trigger emotions in you. And sometimes that's something you really want to go talk to someone about, right? Whether that's a counselor or a pastor or spiritual advisor or therapist. Because what you don't want to do is be like, I hate that kids can like get me there, right? And certain people in my life, right? There's family members I know that can take me from bliss to pissed in 2 seconds, right? And I want to make sure I'm working through that stuff so that, like my wife said, it's not ruling me. I don't want someone else's behavior to dictate my behavior. And if I see that's happening, I probably need to talk to someone about it so I can figure that stuff out.
Yes. Just so you know, John has not been here the longest. He said it's Tracy.
Pinter?
Yeah.
How many episodes have you been on?
She's not on today. She said she couldn't.
Well, that's the longest. I think Lopez has the longest running record, because Tracy was around back in the what the heck was that thing called? We had to use that third part. Be Now. I wonder if they still exist. But like, Tracy was around back in the Be Now days when we used to have actual other people on here.
Yes, like live guests.
Yeah, but I think Lopez, I don't think he's ever missed an episode. Ever.
Oh, he hasn't been here for 300, he said. He didn't start coming right away.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We'll have to figure that out.
All right, we're going to figure it out. Someone's getting an award.
Someone deserves an award.
Someone's getting a trophy.
Excuse me. Marcus is asking, How did you become such a great teacher? What did you do to keep improving while still working in school?
So, Marcus, I'll say first, I'm not going to downplay myself, but calling me a great teacher, although I appreciate that, you need to know that when you're a great teacher, not everyone thinks you're a great teacher, right? Like it is.
I think everyone's a great teacher in their own.
No, they're not.
Like, no. I'm not saying that everyone's a great teacher. I'm saying that teachers that are great are different. Like your greatness is very different than Randy's or Cho's, or
Yeah.
like you're similar. Your greatness is similar to Yonkers when you guys.
Yeah, these are all people I worked with before, by the way. So if anyone's like, "Who's that?" Are they in the audience?
Sorry. I think your greatness is unique to you. That's why it's so important for teachers to be their authentic self. And as a sideliner,
Yes.
let me ask, as a person who has watched CJ, his trajectory in teaching, and I've always been a part of that. We would always come home and have conversations about students. I'd ask about different kids, like, because I care. So I've always been a part of that journey with him. I will say that your biggest is, I think one of the key things that has helped you become such a great teacher is that it's always student centered. It's always, education is really only ever about students. And you've always been true to that and kept true to that and kept focus on that. That was your primary focus in everything. It's like everything that you do was for the betterment of the student.
Yes.
In every way. That's like a running theme that I see. So how you planned lessons went from, I thought this lesson was great and it failed and bombed in class, then talking to students and saying like, what do you want school to be like? What do you want these lessons to be like? Oh, you want to go on trips? Okay, let's try and like make trips happen. And then when they couldn't happen, you still like found a way to make them happen. Like all of that's in your book. And those are not
super secret class trips.
Shouldn't really do those. But
Bo had a whole fit.
Oh, I'm
her
sure.
look on her face when I told her about that.
Well, nowadays I
if
feel
y'all
like
follow Principal Mo on social, she's great.
She's part of the Knowledge Project.
Yeah, she was with me at the Knowledge event, and I told her, I said about super secret class trips. She was like, "That's awesome," and Mo was like, just looked, and I was like, "Oh, I know."
She's the administrator.
I understand.
But that's been the running theme is education, and that even is only ever about students. It's all the decisions that you make, from not going to meetings. You're like, I already know this, or this is not important, or it could be an email. Like
that is one of the two big things. And you're hitting all the reasons why. And that is, one, you don't care what you look like because you're doing it for kids. So I'm never embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed that I failed at something. I'm not embarrassed that I have something weird I'm wearing in class. I'm doing something weird. I'm doing something that's too loud, too crazy, or I don't care, because what I'm doing for the children, right? So if I look dumb, I wasn't trying to ever be cool anyway. The other side is, right? So I'll say, wasn't usually trying to be cool. The other downfall, I think, to great teachers is thinking you're great. Greatness is a state of becoming. It is never a place that you arrive at.
Absolutely.
And so you have to be becoming the fullest, best version of yourself. And if I start, as people say, like getting high on your own supply, if I start like really feeling myself, that's the quick road to getting your butt humbled. So it is, I'm always trying to get better. I'm doing it for kids. And like I said, if I was doing it for me, I'd only go so far. But when I'm doing it for kids, I'm constantly reading, constantly learning, constantly getting better, constantly looking for ways to tweak stuff, to systemize stuff, to make the systems better, to make student engagement better, to make like opportunities better. It is always moving towards that. So that's the second thing. If I add in just one more, because I could probably speak to this a lot, it is, man, you don't go as far as your dream. You only go as far as your team. This is not a solo activity that solo teachers aren't sustainable. You have to find your crew, whether that is online or in real life. It doesn't matter. In person is always better, because you're just, especially if they're in your school, like I wouldn't be the teacher that I never had the success I had without teaching with great people. And it's because they can just speak into your everyday life. But having an online crew is nothing to laugh at. It is like that is some serious help of finding people that are going to pour into you, that you can pour into, that they are your crew. Man, that is iron sharpens iron is what the Bible tells us, and that is true.
Okay, so let's do a little twist on this because he says, like specific things you can do because I know 60, I don't know how old he is.
60-year-old teachers.
Yeah, that are absolutely terrible.
It's because they didn't grow. I think a lot of that stuff, Mark, is folks that got jaded. They realized that.
So how do you you're just saying it's just keep growing as a human? Like, how do you not become stagnant? Is it's like
So I had a
where you become a 60-year-old curmudgeon?
It's kind of like when I have a mentee. I'm not sure if you watch it, so I won't use his name, but
Yeah,
he's in Ireland, and we had a call a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Do you ever get to that point as an educator where you have it on lock?" Because I was telling him I had had a rough day recently in the classroom, and he said, can you get to that place where you have it on lock? And I said, I don't think you do. Because if you're trying to get better, you're willing to make mistakes. You're willing to try stuff that won't work. And if I look at people that inspire me, it's not someone that wrote a book 100 years ago and they're still talking about the same book. It's, there's certain people that are so prolific, and look, there's folks that wrote a book, like Dave Burgess wrote a book, and he can talk about that book for the rest of his life. And I admire him greatly. But there's other folks that are far more prolific, and there's bands that I even respect that I don't necessarily even listen to all of them, but like Fish, The Grateful Dead, Pearl Jam, that every time you go see them, you never know what the set list is going to be like. It's completely different every night. You never know what the jam is going to be like that leads into the song. Like there's a jazz element to that. And I think with jazz, you never know how this is going to work or not work. And so how do you become great and not become a curmudgeon? I think it's trying new stuff and not judging yourself on whether something succeeds or fails. It's looking at failure as a result and then figuring out how do I get better. I think that's the move. That's the game. And if you look at what even helps people to live long and happy lives, it's still challenging themselves. It's still having some kind of newness in your life. When you stop moving, you stop living. And so it's like constantly trying and getting comfortable with that failure. You get to a point where it's like, you don't go home and cry. You don't go home and like drink a box of wine. You're just constantly moving, changing and shifting and trying to figure stuff out. And like, it's getting excited by taking those complex issues and problems and trying to find solutions for them. And to me, that is, I know folks I've taught, I knew folks 2-3 years in that were just like became curmudgeons. And so it's not something that takes a long time, but I also take extreme responsibility. I think that's probably part of it too, Marcus, is that I take extreme ownership. If it's not working, it's because of me. If I blame the student, if I blame the system, if I blame the administration, even if they're at fault, there's no power there for me. If it's someone else's fault, I can't do anything about it. If I take the ownership on me, I now have the power to do something with that. And also, I want folks to catch that. I realize that the school system is broken. I realize that some of you are at schools that suck, that the kids are extra challenging, that the admin is not helpful, that the other teachers around you may suck as well, right? Let's keep it real here. But if I give them the power as to why this is failing, then I got nothing. I have nothing to change. I can't change it. If I take on ownership, then I give myself the chance to figure this out. And so that's where I choose to go with it.
Um, it's kind of interesting because Linda had a comment. She said when we were talking, she asked a question before about emotions.
Yeah.
And she said more around negative emotions like anger and frustration with the school system, pressure from the school district, or other situations that I'm not happy with at my school.
Do those emotions serve my students, right? So there are times I've had emotions, like when, like we're going to keep it a buck here too. When my wife had a miscarriage, I went into school the next day and I was so crushed that the kids were like, "Yo, Reynolds, where were you?" And I was like, "Look, I'm gonna tell you all right now." These were seniors too, by the way. I didn't teach like little kids. I said, "My wife had a miscarriage last night, and I'm finding it. I wanted to show up for y'all, but I'm finding it hard to be here today." And that served my students because it allowed them to show up with empathy. I had a kid that was like, my girl had a miscarriage before. Reynolds were like, "I lost a baby before." Like, these are not things you ever think you would have in commonality with your students, but it did. And it was emotional, but I think it served my students in that moment. If I'm showing up to school,
No,
and
what if it's about frustrations with the school system?
that's on go to, right?
Okay.
So, but like
when your last year at BL, which was horrific.
I had a really
frustrated with the system.
I don't use the word hate often. But man, I won't even say I hated anyone. I hated the situation that I was in. It was so hard to show up and teach us. Every freaking thing I did got it was like they just kept whack-a-mole me. It was like there were other moles popping up. They were sitting over top of my hole. Like just every single thing I did was challenged. And so I could sometimes voice that frustration, but I realized that wasn't helping the kids. All I was doing is making them mad too. And so for that, I chose not to voice that frustration. That was my battle to fight. It wasn't for the students. So it kind of depends on like, whether it's personal or whether it's in school, it's like, does what I'm talking about here serve my students? Is this something we can talk about? Is this something we can have dialogue about? Is this something they just need to understand because I'm so damn mad every day? It takes some insight, some self-reflection to understand, is this something I can really have this conversation with?
There's some level of just knowing that like you're working in a broken system. Like the education system is not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's a broken system. So you can either spend your time being like super frustrated and aggravated about it, or how can you change it and shift in your classroom? You're not going to be able to shift the whole education system. That's a big old ship to write. But you can make changes in your classroom and maybe with your administration through dialogue. Like, I don't even know how much leeway you have there. So it's either you are just mad at it constantly and letting that kind of eat at you. And then I think you end up hating the job on some level. Like there's like a resentment. You're like, I can't do it anymore. Forget it. And that cuts your time short in education. Or you just kind of have an understanding that it's a broken system and you do the best you can.
I'm going to win anyway.
Yeah.
That's how we always went into it. Like, it was just like, all right, what are we going to do anyway? How are we going to fix this? What are we going to do about it? How are we going to make this work? And that is, and look, I'll say this last thing about this, and for Linda, if it is really that horrible, look, y'all, if you can, look for a new job, right? Like some schools don't deserve to have you. And that sucks for the kids. But as someone who has now moved across the country, I'm telling you, the work that the schools that I do here, every school I've worked with closely in New Mexico, those kids that need good teachers are everywhere.
Yeah, in every
they're
school.
At private schools. They're at good public schools. They're at crappy public schools. They're at charter schools. So there's no like, and those kids that got you for that time, right? Like, and now it's Mary Poppins, man. It's like, it's going to the next community and how can you spread your blessings there and use your gifts there. And if you work on good leadership, it only multiplies your efforts. It is like they pour gasoline on your fire, and now you're really getting to do good and important work. So that's something to think of too.
All right, Tristan has a fun question. He says, any tips for reading messy writing? My guess is that I'll just get better at it with time, but currently it takes me a lot longer to evaluate that work.
So let's say this. Let's say this to the internet.
We need an AI tool. Yes, that you can like take a picture and it will read it to you.
Yes, sloppy AI. That's what it's called. And so I think
I'll go with that name.
I am. But you could perhaps it's really talking to kids about like the worst writing is usually, I don't say it's on purpose, but you're just not caring enough. Like if I can't read, I tell kids if I can't read it, I don't grade it.
Or there's a disability.
And
that's a caveat. I'm just saying.
That's a different conversation. And those kids I would have just type. But I used to tell students, if I can't read it, I'll grade it. And like, I'm not here to figure. What am I, a sleuth? Like this isn't Sherlock Holmes over here. This is like if I can't read it, I'm not grading it. I also don't grade stuff that doesn't have a name on it.
John said, if it's like from a student, like pull him or her aside and ask them to take more pride in his penmanship. In their penmanship.
Oh, that's it. And that's important too, right? Like no matter what you do in your life, that's a life skill. I don't want to leave a note for my wife in the morning that she can't read.
This is so true.
Now, look, that is also coming from me and Lopez, who are penmanship people, right?
Yes, I do not have penmanship like that, but it's legible. Okay, Linda's asking, if you can go back to your first few years of teaching, what advice would you give your past self?
1, don't give other people's kids more than you give your own. I would come home dog-ass tired and not have it for my kids. I used to make up games where dad could sleep and
These are kind of fun, though.
They were. Cute. I mean, I figured it out. So that's 1. The other is, if the car don't got gas, ain't nobody going anywhere. That's what my friend Denise's dad used to say. And you really have to fill yourself up. You really, like, self-care is a luxury. Stop being a teacher martyr. Teachers are martyrs all the time. Don't do it. It's not attractive. You don't get credit points. You don't get a better place in heaven for it. It's like pour in, you matter. And then, man, I want to try and get better. I can only teach at the level of the person that I am. So I need to become a better Reynolds in general to be a better teacher. So if I'm not, especially back then, if I'm not in therapy, if I'm not having difficult conversations, if I'm not figuring stuff out, like if I'm not figuring out my own stuff and getting stronger in my health, in my physical abilities, in my quality of sleep, in my talking to spiritual directors, like in reading books, I need to be strengthening this person so that I can do that work on the next level. And that's what I would do. And I got to figure out how to get my money right, because, man, that first year, I made 31 grand. My first year of teaching, I realized that's a lot more than some teachers make, especially if you're like Oklahoma and stuff like that. But I mean, $31,000 a year, and I didn't get paid June, July, and August. And man, I mean, we were poor back then. Like stealing napkins from the Chinese food joint across the street.
You can always be poor, so.
You can always be poor. Like, we're American poor, but I mean, we were, as Myron really says, broke the joke and ready to choke. Like, it was.
Yeah.
And then you'd get kind of better. Then it would be Christmas time. Then you'd buy Christmas presents and you'd just be back down again. And it was, oh gosh,
no way.
It sucked.
When my kids were little, I thought this was genius. I went to the thrift store and found like all kinds of great toys, and I just packaged those suckers up. They didn't know any difference, and they didn't care.
For me, that was a real hit to my pride.
Yeah.
To know that I couldn't just buy brand new. Like, that was,
Oh, it's earth conscious, reuse, reduce, recycle. That's how I looked
All right.
at it. So Ruth is asking if you have any links for the Knowledge Project. So do you want to talk about what Knowledge is and what they do in case people don't
So what
know?
Knowledge does.
Before you do that, I did put a link in there to Knowledge's YouTube channel where you can watch the Attendathon that CJ and 3 other hosts were a part of. And
they're all worth following.
Future stuff is going to happen on the YouTube channel that you're probably going to want to pay attention to. But I would also just follow Get Knowledge on. I can put a link. Can you link?
Yeah, go to
Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, go pull it up, and I'm going to talk. Let me know when you're there, and I'll talk about it.
Okay.
So what Knowledge is it's a lot of stuff that I already do, but so it is teacher professional development. They also have an app that incentivizes, that's fighting against student chronic absenteeism. So what they do is they will run programs with certain schools that sign up for this, and you get, they'll do like competition. So kids for showing up, just showing up to school, right? Because if we can't get kids in seats, then we can't teach them. So getting kids in seats and helping kids to find success, that combination is wins kids things that Knowledge gives them. Switches, PlayStation or Nintendo Switches, Jordans.
They give them stuff that they want.
Yeah.
The kids are like,
Roblox
oh,
gift
like
cards.
they're just excited to.
So it is.
They come to school.
How do we get fight against chronic absenteeism? How are we engaging students? Really engaging them? How are we creating professional development that's actually worth something? Right? We all know, like, professional development 90% of the time sucks. It's by someone that is not engaging. So they're trying to create really great stuff. And although I'm doing that as a solopreneur, I just think I serve a God of abundance and that there's enough for everybody. So I'm trying to really amplify the work that they're doing as well. I mean, and it's headed by this guy, Eamon Ra. Eamon Ra is, if you've ever been to Get Your Teach On, he's everywhere. But he's an award-winning principal from Compton. And we met years ago through my friend Shivy, who's a teacher in Atlanta. Principal Mo's a principal out in Baltimore area, like the hood in Baltimore. And then Alexia is a part of this with me as well. And she's out of Atlantic City, New Jersey. So it's all of us have kind of come from similar teaching backgrounds and are really finding that this is an effort for us to come together like as Avengers and bring gifts together so that we can really try and do something all together.
So there's a branch off of that has not been announced yet.
That
so
we are leading.
So something special is coming that those 4 educators are going to be a part of and lead. It just hasn't been announced yet, but it will be soon. So that's why I say go follow Get Knowledge or the YouTube channel.
Which is awesome. But then this is going to turn into, like I said, 2 different conferences.
There's
it's going to be one in LA, one in Atlanta. Those will be announced soon. And then a lot of other in-person events. And then like I said, some stuff that's never been done. But even the conferences that we're talking about, this is like, we're looking to do stuff that conferences miss all the time. It's going to be a conference unlike anything else that anyone else is doing.
The team that's planning all these things, I don't doubt it. Like,
the behind-the-scenes team is remarkable.
But even you 4 co-hosts.
So, and look, and y'all know, I mean, this is something I've tried to do with a couple of educators before when I did Upgrade Ed back in the day. But this is
already something that a company is
they're already established.
Yeah.
And now we are doing this.
This
but
is not going to be under the umbrella of Knowledge. It's going to be really awesome and for teachers, which is, I think it'll be a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we're at an hour if that's
cool. We are. And our kids are having friends over. So that's the real reason I got to split. Because, I'm going to people come in and then my dog's going to be barking at him and no one wants to listen to that. So listen, y'all, if your school is looking for speakers, I'm going to throw up the QR code now. If you're looking for mentoring, if you need help with, reach out to us. There's programs available. There's classroom management things available. We just had a whole school in California purchase the classroom management workshop. And so this is things that like schools are making purchases to get. So if you think that something we're doing is going to benefit your school, and even if you don't know how to ask your school, reach out, let me know, and I'll help you plan that out, right? This isn't just about like us getting here. This is about, I really want to use my gifts that God has given me to bless teachers, because then they're ultimately going to bless students. And that's what this whole thing is about, right? So thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you so much for listening. Share this with people if you think they can use it. And I hope that you have the most wonderful and insanely blessed week this week that you possibly can. That's it, gang. See you next Sunday. Peace.